What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another one of our game recaps. Today, we're going to be looking at the games from September 17th. The first game is the Bills and the Raiders. The Bills took this one 38-10. They beat the crap out of them. Jimmy Garoppolo was 16-24 for 185 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Not the best day from him. Missing Jacoby Myers. Who would have thought that Jacoby Myers being out would have had this much of an impact? But they are also playing a good defense, too. And this was the type of game it was for the Raiders. Trey Tucker led the way for all rushers. A rookie receiver who didn't catch a pass on 1 carry, led the entire team in rushing. 1 carry, 34 yards for him. Zamir White had 4 carries for 22. Jimmy Garoppolo had 1. And Josh Jacobs, huge disappointment today. 9 carries for -2. But he had a decent day receiving the ball. He had 5 catches for 51 yards on 6 targets. Still, a rough day for him. Davante Adams led the way for all receivers. No surprise there. 6 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Solid day for him. Hunter Renfrow, we were expecting a little more from him because of Jacoby Myers being out, but he had the catch for 23 yards. Only the 1 target is not what we were expecting whatsoever. Austin Hooper had 2 catches for 20 yards. Amir Abdullah had a catch for 5, and Michael Mayer had a catch for 2. Keep Davante Adams in your lineups. Be patient with Josh Jacobs because he's still an elite rusher, and this is a tough defense. And last week was his first game in a while, so be vigilant with Josh Jacobs. Just don't do something crazy and try to sell him for way less than he's worth right now because he's going to get better as the season goes on. And Jimmy Garoppolo is just mainly a bye week fill-in at this point. Josh Allen was fantastic today. 31-37, 274 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, just glorious stuff from him. James Cook, also amazing day from him. Keep putting him in your lineups. 17 carries for 123 yards, averaging 7.2 yards per carry. Love to see it. Damien Harris had 7 carries for 33 yards and a touchdown. Latavius Murray had 6 carries for 22 and a touchdown. It sucks to see Harris and Murray vulturing those touchdowns, though. That's a real bummer. But James Cook, still looking explosive, still looking great. Hopefully he'll get some more goal line work, but this game is not a good indication for that in particular. Josh Allen had 3 carries for 7, and Kyle Allen chipping in 2 carries for -2. Gabe Davis led the way for all receivers. He had 6 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown on 7 targets. This is how rostering Gabe Davis works. He's going to have these huge spike weeks, and then he's going to go crashing down, and it's going to be hard to predict. So far, when they played the Jets, he wasn't good, and when they played the Raiders, he was good. The Raiders have a bad pass defense, and the Jets have a really good one. So that is predictable. Maybe we could watch that more as we go forward, but I just wouldn't be putting a whole lot of trust into Gabe Davis as of yet. Stefon Diggs had 7 catches for 66 yards. A little disappointing from him. Dalton Kincaid, this is kind of what we expect every game from Dalton Kincaid. Hopefully a touchdown can get in here somewhere, but 5 catches for 43 yards on 6 targets for him. James Cook had 4 catches for 36. Khalil Shakir added a touchdown on 11 yards and a catch. Dawson Knox also had a touchdown, 3 catches for 10 yards. Latavius Murray had 2 for 9. Deontay Hardy had 2 for 4, and Reggie Gilliam had a catch for 3. Keep playing Stefon Diggs. I wouldn't say play Gabe Davis for sure yet unless you're in a pinch. And don't get too bogged down in James Cook not scoring touchdowns either. He's still going to put up yards. He's still a really solid play in fantasy lineups. Next game is the Ravens and the Bengals. The Ravens took this one 27-24. Lamar Jackson was great. 24-33, 237 yards, 2 touchdowns and no picks. Also had 12 carries for 54 yards. Just an awesome day from him. Gus Edwards led the way on the ground. He had 10 carries for 62 yards and a touchdown. Justice Hill had 1 more carry, but he only managed 41 yards. I'm expecting Gus Edwards to have more of this rushing load as the season goes on. This is kind of more of the same with Justice Hill. He doesn't have a whole bunch of yards per carry usually, and he's not big and built like Gus the Bus. So I think Gus is going to get the touchdowns. I think Gus is going to eventually get most of the work on the ground, but Justice Hill getting 1 more carry here. There were reports that Justice Hill was lining up with the first team a little bit more in practice, so that's something to watch out moving forward. Devin Duvernay had 3 carries for 15, and Zay Flowers had a carry for 7 as well. Nelson Aguilar led the way for all receivers. Weren't expecting that at all. 5 catches for 63 yards and a touchdown for him. I wouldn't say that he's an ad because he's another one of these players, kind of like Kendrick Bourne, where they just, they have spike weeks, but they aren't really a guy who's going to give you consistent production every week. But he's not an ad quite yet. Odell Beckham went down with an injury in this game also. Before he went down, he had 3 catches for 29 yards. Zay Flowers was not far behind as far as yards. 4 catches for 62 yards for him. We weren't expecting the huge production he had last week with Mark Andrews coming back, but Nelson Aguilar out receiving him was a wrinkle that I was not expecting. Mark Andrews had 5 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. Solid first day back for him. Rashod Bateman, he's a drop. 3 catches for 18 yards. I think Odell is a drop too, even though he got hurt. 3 catches for 29 yards for him. Justice Hill, this is where I think he's going to make most of his production. Hill. I think Hill is going to be the receiver. I think Gus Edwards is going to be the runner. Hill had 3 catches for 12 yards. Isaiah Likely also had a catch for 8 yards. I think that's more yards than he had all of last week, because I think he only had 1 catch for 4 yards. But Mark Andrews, keep plugging him into your lineups. Zay Flowers, I still think that he's a solid option because I'm not expecting Nelson Aguilar to be the guy for very many games moving forward. And watch out for Gus Edwards. If this output is any indication, he's going to get a lot more work. For the Bengals, Joe Burrow had a so-so game, 27 of 41 for 222 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. I think he's a huge buy low right now. The Ravens are a good defense, and they played the Browns in a rainstorm last week. Patience with Joe Burrow, patience with Jamar Chase. Joe Mixon had 13 carries for 59 yards, typical Joe Mixon day. Wish there was a touchdown in there somewhere, though. Burrow had 5 yards on the ground, and Chase Brown had a carry for 2. T. Higgins led the way for all receivers. He actually had a catch in this game, thank God. 8 catches for 89 yards and 2 touchdowns on 12 targets. T. Higgins is money in the bank. That 0 from last week, I don't know what the hell happened, but this is more of what T. Higgins does. Lots of catches, good amount of yards. He'll get you a solid amount of fantasy points every week, money in the bank. Tyler Boyd had 6 catches for 52 yards. He's not usually going to have value on his own like this because Jamar Chase is going to have more yards. Joe Mixon had 4 catches for 36, and Jamar Chase 5 catches for 31. Be patient with him. Do not trade him because if you're trading him now, you are trading him at his lowest point. Wait for him to have a huge spike week because it is absolutely coming. If you don't believe in Jamar Chase, fine, but just don't trade him away yet because this is the lowest that his value will be all year. Kind of like I was saying earlier with Joe Burrow. They had the Ravens this week, and then they played in a rainstorm last week. This isn't typical of how they usually play. So be patient with Jamar Chase, even though this is super annoying. 2 catches for 10 yards for Irv Smith, and Travion Williams had 2 catches for 4. So the main thing here, patience. And if you were patient with T. Higgins after last week, it was rewarded. So just keep exercising that patience with Bengals. Next game is the Chiefs and the Jaguars. The Chiefs took this one 17-9. Way more low scoring than I thought it would be. Patrick Mahomes had 29 of 41, 305 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Solid day for him. Isiah Pacheco, he had a big day. 12 carries for 70 yards. I think he is a sell high because this team, their rushing output is going to be super unpredictable week to week. Last week we had Clyde Edwards-Helaire splitting carries with Pacheco. I wouldn't bank on Pacheco being the lead dog every single week. This is going to change up with however the Chiefs are viewing the matchup. So if you have Pacheco, I would actually advise you to trade him away right now, even though, you look at this box score by itself and he had 12 carries and the next closest back only had 1. That on its own would tell you that it is, it's a situation where Pacheco is going to take all the carries, but I don't think that is going to be the case every game. I think they just saw Isiah Pacheco having a hot hand in this one, and they just rode him to death. Sell him if you can. I get it if you don't, but I am viewing him as a sell high at this point. Mahomes also had 30 yards on the ground. Kadarius Toney had a carry for 3. Clyde Edwards-Helaire just had the 1 carry for 0, and Jarrett McKinnon had a carry for -2. Sky Moore led the way for all receivers. He had 3 catches for 70 yards and a touchdown. I don't think you should go at him after this. This Chiefs receiving game is going to be just as unpredictable as the rushing game. The rushing game in this one was super predictable, but I think whoever emerges as the top running back is usually going to be Pacheco, but it's going to go up and down. And I think with the receivers, the leading receiver is going to usually be Travis Kelce, but it's going to go up and down. So I don't think you should go spend a healthy amount of your fab budget to go add Sky Moore. Justin Watson had 3 catches for 62, and that's even further proof because Justin Watson had more targets than Sky Moore. He had nearly as many yards. He had the same amount of catches. Don't add Sky Moore, please. 3 catches for 38 yards for Noah Gray, 5 catches for 35 for Kadarius Toney. Good to see him bounce back. Travis Kelce had 4 catches for 26 and a touchdown. Great to see him get that touchdown. Thank God he got that touchdown. He almost had another touchdown in that game too, but that one got called back. Jarrett McKinnon had 3 catches for 24, led all running backs through the air. Usually what he does here. Rashee Rice had 2 catches for 20. CEH had 2 catches for 17. Marquez Valdes-Scantling had 2 catches for 13. Donovan Smith, the left tackle, had a catch for 0 yards. Richie James did not haul in his only target, and Isiah Pacheco had 1 catch for 0 yards. So trade Isiah Pacheco if you had him. That would be my guess. Don't go add Sky Moore, and be patient with Travis Kelce because he's going to have more yards than this usually. The touchdown today was really nice, and it might tempt you to say, hey, I should trade him now because his value is going to be high because of the touchdown, but he's still recovering from this knee thing. Give him a chance. It's Travis Kelce. He is going to get more yards than this. For the Jags, Trevor Lawrence was 22 of 41, 216 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Rough day for him. Christian Kirk also had a pass for -1 yards there. Travis Etienne, 12 carries for 40 yards, and Trevor Lawrence had 5 carries for 26. So with Trevor Lawrence, be patient. It's not going to be this bad usually. He's got too many weapons around him. It was just a really weird game. Like, he was not able to complete anything to outside receivers here. It was all the slot guy and the tight end making all the work. So Calvin Ridley's going to do better. Zay Jones is going to get involved. Just for whatever reason, this defense absolutely had the outside receivers number in this one. ETN, clearly the number 1 back here. Tank Bigsby not getting any touches in this game. We always got to be careful of, one, a rookie, because with rookies, a lot of people are going to talk them up because they don't have any stats from the previous year or for any year in the NFL to tell them that whatever outlandish claim they have about this player isn't true. So people are going to blow up rookies for that reason. And when you have a guy named Tank Bigsby and has a funny name, people are going to remember him for that reason too. We got to just keep their play involved when we're doing these kind of projections because Tank Bigsby was sharing the load at Auburn, and Auburn wasn't that great of a team to begin with. Travis Etienne was winning championships. He was a first-round pick. He's one of the most gifted running backs in college football history again. He's the guy. He's going to stay the guy. If anybody in your league is a Tank Bigsby truther, get rid of him. I would actually suggest dropping him because I don't think that there's anybody in your league who's going to take him after this game. Dearness Johnson was the main backup here. He had a carry for 8 yards. Christian Kirk led the way for all receivers. Like I was saying earlier, this was a really heavy slot receiver tight end game. 11 catches for 110 yards on 14 targets for him. A far cry from the nothing he put up last week. I think what's going to happen with the Jags is you're going to have Ridley, who's going to get targets, and you're going to have Evan Ingram as a tight end who's going to get about this production here, 6 catches for 57 yards. Those two guys are always going to be a factor, but Christian Kirk and Zay Jones, it's going to be one of them's going to have a good game, the other one's not. Like, they're going to do this a whole lot. So don't get too bogged down in Zay Jones not performing well, but also don't think that because this game happened that Christian Kirk is all of a sudden like a top 10 receiver the rest of the way, because that's not the case either. Trade for Calvin Ridley if the guy in your league who has him doesn't want him, and just move forward like that, because the stars in this offense are Travis Etienne, Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram's going to be steady, Trevor Lawrence is a really good quarterback. That's the way it's set up here. This is a solid team. Better days are definitely ahead. Just some patience, I think, is necessary. And understanding the situation within this team is also really important. Next game is the Chargers and the Titans. The Titans squeezed this one out in overtime, 27-24. Justin Herbert was 27 of 41 for 305 yards and 2 touchdowns. Solid day for him. I would have expected more with the matchup because the Titans are really good against the run and not good against the pass. So with how heavily they leaned on the passing game in this one, because Joshua Kelly led the way with 13 carries, but I mean, Elijah Dotson was behind him with 4, and there's not really anybody else who's close. So they had an opportunity to throw for a bunch of yards here, and they didn't really do it. Herbert had a solid game, but just that yards number is a lot lower than I thought it would be. I'm tempted to say that if there's someone in your league who really likes Justin Herbert, you might be better off trading him, because this looks like it's going to be a rushing team when they're at full strength. And even when the gates have opened for them to be a really good passing team, Herbert still didn't put up yards like that. So keep that in mind. This was a solid game, but I think it's a good foundation for you to build a trade off of. Joshua Kelce, it was the Joshua Kelce show on the ground. 13 carries for 39 yards. And like I said, Tennessee has a really good rushing defense, so that's why the output wasn't as high here. Darius Davis had a carry for 10. Elijah Dotson had 4 carries for 6. He's going to be that third running back behind Kelly and Eckler. Mike Williams had a carry for 3. Isaiah Spiller, he was a healthy scratch in the last game, but with Eckler being out, he got a carry here for 3 yards, and Justin Herbert didn't add anything through the ground. Keenan Allen had a huge day. 8 catches for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. If he's available, plug him into your fantasy lineups. Mike Williams played well too. 8 catches for 83 yards on 13 targets for him. Really great day for them, taking full advantage of this matchup. Gerald Everett had 3 catches for 47 yards. Stone Smart, amazing name. 1 catch for 24 yards. Elijah Dotson had 2 catches for 13. Joshua Palmer had 3 for 13. Donald Parham, one of the top 10 tight ends in fantasy last week, had 1 catch for 7. And Quentin Johnson, the rookie, had a catch for 7 as well. So Joshua Kelce, don't get too discouraged by this performance, because the matchup really allowed for passing. And play Keenan Allen if he's in your lineup. I'd say at this point play Mike Williams too, even though that's more of a fringe play than Keenan Allen is. And Justin Herbert, solid day here, but I think it's a good opportunity for you to trade. For the Titans, they just played really smart, mistake-free football. Ryan Tannehill was 20 of 24, 246 yards and a touchdown. Really good stuff from him as far as Ryan Tannehill is concerned. This isn't as good of a game as Herbert had, but Herbert's expectations are way up here. And Tannehill, if he just gets you a serviceable game, that's a win. So good stuff from Tannehill. Derrick Henry had 25 carries for 79 yards. Not a great average, but he had that touchdown. Tyjae Spears had 8 carries for 49 yards as well. And Ryan Tannehill chipped in 12 and a touchdown. Treylon Burks led the way for all receivers. A surprise with DeAndre Hopkins active. Burks had 3 catches for 76 yards on 4 targets. I would say he's a sell high, because I don't think that this offense can support 2 fantasy relevant receivers with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback. And this game is kind of evident of that because of Hopkins not performing as well. Chris Moore had a catch for 49. DeAndre Hopkins had 4 catches for 40 on 5 targets. He led the way in targets, but still a disappointing output from him. Chico Conquo, he had a solid day. 4 catches for 35 yards for him. Nick Westbrook-Akine had 3 catches for 25 yards, and he had the touchdown. Derrick Henry had 3 catches for 15. Tyjae Spears had 2 catches for 7. So Derrick Henry, he's going to have better days than this, but this was still a really solid day. Trade away Treylon Burks if there's someone in your league who likes him, because there are a lot of Treylon Burks truthers out there. And Ryan Tannehill, this was a very advantageous matchup for the Titans through the air, because the Chargers secondary has not looked good at all through the first 2 games. But, he'd be a solid bye week fill-in more than anything. I wouldn't count on him for reliable fantasy production moving forward. The next game is the Packers and the Falcons. The Falcons squeezed this one out 25-24. Jordan Love continuing his low completion percentage, high touchdown, low interception pace that he had from last week. 14-25, 151 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. Solid output from him. A.J. Dillon had 15 carries for 55 yards with Aaron Jones out. Would have liked to see that touchdown, but he didn't get that here. Kind of what we were expecting. High carries, low yards, hopefully a touchdown. Jordan Love had 2 carries for 23 yards. Emmanuel Wilson, the backup behind A.J. Dillon, had 3 carries for 5. And Patrick Taylor had a carry for 1 yard. Dontavian Wicks led the way for all receivers. The rookie, he had 2 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. Jaden Reed was the big fantasy producer here. He had 4 catches for 37 yards and 2 touchdowns. Romeo Doubs, disappointing. He was covered by A.J. Terrell in this one. It's on me for not factoring that in enough, but that is something to keep an eye on as people face the Falcons. Is their number 1 receiver is probably going to get locked down by A.J. Terrell, but these secondary guys like Wicks, like Reed, they have an opportunity to really shine against the Falcons. Luke Musgrave, I thought he would have a bigger day too. He only had 2 catches for 25 yards. A.J. Dillon just had the one catch for 8, and Samori Toure had the catch for 6. I think the big takeaway here is that A.J. Dillon just solidifying what we already learned from last week. Even if he gets a whole bunch of carries, don't expect too many yards. Romeo Doubs, I would be patient with him because it was such a tough matchup against A.J. Terrell today. Even when Christian Watson comes back, it could be Romeo Doubs getting these touches that Jaden Reed got, that Dontavian Wicks got. And I think he would do more if he had more touches in this game too. So hang on to Romeo. Jaden Reed is an interesting play, but I'm not sure how involved he'll be once Christian Watson is there. And Jordan Love, I'm not sure if he can continue this high touchdown, low interception, low completion percentage pace. It is really interesting to see. I just don't know how sustainable it's going to be. For the Falcons, Desmond Ridder did not look, he's not a good quarterback at all, but they got the win in this one. 19-32 for him, 237 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Bijan Robinson led the way. He had a monster game. 19 carries, 124 yards, 6.5 yards per carry, just stellar stuff. Tyler Algier, not as stellar. 16 carries for 48 yards. I wonder what his role is going to look like moving forward because Bijan did look a lot better out there, even from the eye test, not even looking at this stat sheet. Desmond Ridder had 10 carries for 39 yards and a touchdown as well. He's not usually a runner, but this was solid, obviously, because of the touchdown. Drake London, coming back from the dead. He was an absolute nothing last week. 1 target, no catches. He bounced back in a huge way here. 6 catches for 67 yards and a touchdown. Hopefully it's more of this moving forward, but with Arthur Smith, you just never know how things are going to go. 3 catches on 60 yards for Mac Hollins. Bijan Robinson had 4 catches for 48 yards on 5 targets. Jonnu Smith, it's crazy that Jonnu Smith is getting more production and more targets than Kyle Pitts. Just wild. 4 catches for 47 yards for Jonnu, and Kyle Pitts just the 2 catches for 15 yards. I don't think Kyle Pitts is really a buy low because for whatever reason, Arthur Smith is just not giving him the ball, and now he's giving Jonnu Smith the ball over him. So this really stinks for Kyle Pitts. Hopefully he finds a new team or a new coach. Drake London, he's paying people off who are patient with him. I'm still not 100% on putting him back into lineups. I want to see how next week goes. And Bijan Robinson is solidifying his place as the future of this franchise. Next game is the Seahawks and the Lions. The Seahawks pulled this one out 37-31. Geno Smith was 32 of 41 for 328 yards and 2 touchdowns. This was a lot better than I thought he was. I thought the Lions kind of shored up the issues that they had in the secondary from last year based on what they did last week against Patrick Mahomes. And it didn't look like Geno Smith was himself when he was playing the Rams. That whole when he was freaking out because Aaron Donald was about to get in his face, and the lack of production against the Rams, who are kind of a ragtag group on defense aside from Aaron Donald, it made me start to think if Geno Smith was reverting back to who he's been his whole career aside from last year. But this game against a solid Lions defense is evidence that he is not going down. He is, in fact, he could be keeping that same pace that he had last year. So I was too far down on Geno Smith, and for that, I take the blame because he was really good here today. Kenneth Walker had 17 carries for 43 yards and 2 touchdowns. Really, the 2 touchdowns were amazing. This isn't a good yards per carry, but I don't expect him to lose very many carries to Zach Charbonnet. Charbonnet had more than DJ Dallas in this one. That's a step up from what he was last week. But I don't think he showed enough to really say that he belongs as that lead dog, or at least on the same wavelength as Kenneth Walker, because Walker is still a super talented back. He just didn't have a good yards per carry here, and he had a good fantasy day with those 2 touchdowns. Geno Smith had 3 carries for 20 yards. Charbonnet, like I said, 4 carries for 16, and DJ Dallas just having the 1 carry for 3. DK Metcalf left this game with a rib injury for a short time, but he still had 6 catches for 75 yards. Awesome stuff from him. Keep putting him in your lineups. Tyler Lockett, he really took advantage of the time where DK Metcalf was out. 8 catches, 59 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Awesome day from him. I think he's a sell high because Smith and Jigba is still going to take catches from him. When DK Metcalf plays the full game, he's going to take catches away. But this was a really awesome thing to see. I think the profile that Lockett's going to have is going to be super up one game, down the next, up and down, because he's going to be more of that deep threat role. Noah Fant had 4 catches for 56 yards. Solid day from him. Colby Parkinson had 2 catches for 41. Will Dissly had 3 catches for 35. Busy day for all the tight ends here. Jackson Smith-Njigba had 5 catches for 34 yards on 6 targets. Charbonnet had 2 catches for 14. Kenneth Walker just had the 1 catch for 11. And Jake Bobo, the darling of the preseason, had 1 catch for 3 yards. So keep Metcalf in your lineups. He did better than this game or this stat sheet shows. Keep Kenneth Walker in your lineups. I wouldn't knock him down because of the lack of efficiency here. And Geno Smith, not declining after all. For the Lions, Jared Goff had an awesome day here. Good matchup against the Seahawks. 28 of 35, 323 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Just a really good day from him. David Montgomery led the way for all rushers. He had 16 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs just had 7 carries for 17 yards. Khalif Raymond just had the carry for 11, and Craig Reynolds had 3 carries for 7. Jahmyr Gibbs. So this is what we've been talking about for weeks with him. He's not going to be the lead dog in this backfield. And there may not be a lead dog. I think as far as who's going to get the rushing attempts, it's going to be David Montgomery. And Jahmyr Gibbs had 7 catches in this game, so it's not like he was completely out of it. But he's losing some touches to Craig Reynolds. David Montgomery is more than doubling his carries. Temper your expectations for Jahmyr Gibbs because, yes, his role is most likely going to grow as the season moves on, but that doesn't mean it's going to completely morph into a workhorse role. He's going to stay as a complement to David Montgomery and a weapon that this offense can use. So don't expect the world from Jahmyr Gibbs just because you drafted him high and because the Lions drafted him high in the NFL draft. He is going to complement what David Montgomery does on the ground. He's going to have explosive plays, and he's going to have weeks where he really goes off, but it's going to be an up and down profile because he's not really getting the volume like that. David Montgomery is going to remain a thing in this offense for the entire year as long as he is healthy. Amon-Ra St. Brown led the way for all receivers. He had 6 catches for 102 yards on 7 targets. Awesome day from him. Josh Reynolds, 2 touchdowns. Glorious. 5 catches for 66 yards. He was one of my super deep sleepers at the beginning of the year. Sam Laporta had 5 catches for 63 yards on 6 targets. He's really turning into a solid low-end tight end 1 option. If you're starting Sam Laporta as your tight end every week, you could absolutely do much worse than him. Khalif Raymond had 2 catches for 46 yards and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs had the 7 catches for 39 yards. 9 targets for him, led the entire team with that. David Montgomery had 1 catch for 7, and Antoine Green had a catch for 2. Craig Reynolds also had the catch for -2. So temper expectations on Jahmyr Gibbs is the big lesson here. He's not going to be the lead dog in this backfield. David Montgomery is going to remain a thing. At the very worst, David Montgomery is going to vulture all the rushing touchdowns here. And Jared Goff, solid low-end QB1. Sam Laporta, solid low-end tight end 1. Just a lot of solid options here for fantasy on the Lions. Next game is the Colts and the Texans. The Colts pulled this one out 31-20, and honestly, it wasn't even that close. Gardner Minshew was 9-23 for 171 yards and a touchdown. Anthony Richardson started this game, and he had an amazing start, but he was out with a concussion. That's why Minshew played. 6-10 for Richardson at 56 yards. He also had 3 carries for 35 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, so really stellar stuff from him. Zach Moss led the way for all rushers. He had 18 carries for 88 yards, and no other running back had a carry. So if you have Zach Moss, if you added him in this latest round of waivers, he's going to be a really solid option moving forward. The Texans are not very good against running backs, so this was a really advantageous matchup for him, but he is going to get volume the rest of the way. Michael Pittman is the clear wide receiver 1 for the Colts. He had 8 catches, 56 yards on 12 targets. Just awesome stuff from him. Keep plugging him into your lineups. Even though the yardage wasn't great, he's going to be the guy that they're going to force feed through the air. Will Mallory had 2 catches for 49 yards, the rookie from Miami. Josh Downs, I think he's going to be more of a factor as the season goes on because he looks really good out there. 4 catches for 37 yards on 5 targets. Alec Pierce had 2 catches for 28 yards. If you have him, you can drop him. Zach Moss also had 4 catches for 19 yards. Kylan Granson, the tight end, had 3 catches for 16 and a touchdown. Mo Alley Cox had 1 catch for 15. This tight end room, it doesn't seem like there's a clear one there. Isaiah McKenzie also had a catch for 7. So keep plugging in Michael Pittman to your lineups. Even though he didn't get the touchdown and the yards weren't great, he is getting a bunch of targets. Zach Moss is emerging as a really solid RB2 option. And Anthony Richardson, he looks great. As soon as he comes back, don't worry about starting him either. For the Texans, CJ Stroud had an awesome day. Easy matchup against the Colts secondary, but he came through in a big way. 30 of 47, 384 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Awesome stuff from him. It didn't result in winning is the only issue, but still a really good statistical day from CJ Stroud today. Dameon Pierce, 15 carries, 31 yards. He is not, don't trade him away because his value is going to be low right now because he has not done well the first 2 games. Don't trade him. But don't cut him either because he's still getting all the carries here. Devin Singletary was second, and what's that? Dameon Pierce almost had 4 times as many carries as Devin Singletary did. He's going to get volume. He's just not getting the yards or the touchdowns right now, and it's really frustrating. So hold on putting him into your lineups, and he may not be the obvious start that I thought he was going to be all year before the season, but hold him. Don't trade him because the value is too low right now. It's just frustrating because he's not performing. Devin Singletary had 4 carries for 14 yards. Dare Ogunbowale had 2 carries for 4 yards. Andrew Beck had 2 carries for 2. And CJ Stroud had 3 carries for 1. For the receivers, Nico Collins led the way. This is his second week in a row leading the way. 7 catches, 146 yards, and a touchdown. Really awesome stuff from him. He's a really solid starter in lineups right now. Robert Woods had 6 catches for 74 yards. Tank Dell had 7 catches for 72 and a touchdown. He led the way in targets. I think the 2 receivers from this offense that you want to roster are Dell and Collins. I think Woods' role is going to shrink as Tank Dell's role grows, but he's still a solid third receiver here. And this passing offense is looking a lot better than I thought it would going into the year. So keep an eye on Dell. He might be a sneaky waiver ad for this week if he's still around on your waiver wire. Dalton Schultz had 4 catches for 34 yards on 7 targets. Okay stuff from him. We expected more going into the season. Brevin Jordan, the backup tight end, had 2 catches for 27 yards, the former Bishop Gorman product. John Mechie had a catch for 17 in his first regular season action. Awesome to see him out there. Devin Singletary had a catch for 10, and Dameon Pierce had 2 catches for 4. So be patient with Dameon Pierce. Don't drop him, but also hold on playing him. Nico Collins is really emerging as a guy who should be in lineups. Tank Dell is going to be a smart ad, and it's good to see CJ Stroud performing like this. Next game is the Bears and the Bucks. The Bucks pulled this one out 27-17. Justin Fields, 16 of 29, 211 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. He also had 4 carries for only 3 yards and a touchdown. Not a good day from him whatsoever. They did not pull out the win. He didn't rack up yards on the ground. He had the rushing touchdown, which is nice, and the passing touchdown. 211 yards is not that great. There will be better days from Justin Fields. I think he's a buy low. The Bucks have a sneaky good defense, so that's another thing to take into account, especially as it pertains to the rushers, including Justin Fields. Khalil Herbert led the way on the ground. He had 7 carries for 35 yards. Rashawn Johnson was behind him. He had 4 carries for 32. And Deontay Foreman was a healthy scratch from this one. So if he's on your team, drop him. Rashawn Johnson could be on his way to getting more carries than Khalil Herbert because he had a great game last week. He had a solid day today when you compare it to Khalil Herbert. So look out for Rashawn Johnson to ascend up this depth chart. And Velus Jones also had a carry for -3. DJ Moore led the way for all receivers. Darnell Mooney went down with an injury early in this one, so DJ Moore really took advantage. 6 catches, 104 yards, 7 targets. Really awesome day from him. Cole Kmet had 4 catches for 38 yards. Chase Claypool led the way in targets with 8, but only had 3 catches for 36 yards. He did have the touchdown, though, so that was somebody who really took advantage of Mooney being out. Khalil Herbert had 1 catch for 23 yards, and Rashawn Johnson had 2 catches for 10. So keep an eye on Johnson. I'm not sure if there is a running back worth starting for the Bears. DJ Moore, I think, is going to be super up and down this year because once Mooney is out there with Claypool and Kmet, I think the targets aren't going to all filter through DJ Moore. It's going to be more spread out, and Justin Fields isn't a guy who's going to rack up completions in a game either. So temper expectations for DJ Moore. I think he's a little bit of a sell high right now, and Justin Fields is the opposite of that. He is a buy low because this was not a good game for him. For the Bucs, Baker Mayfield had a really good day. 26 of 34, 317 yards and a touchdown. Rashod White also had a good day. 17 carries for 73 yards and a touchdown. Baker also added 17 on the ground on 6 carries. Chase Edmonds, the backup running back, had 2 for 12. Sean Tucker, the primary backup, had 8 carries for 7 yards. Interesting that Rashod White got good efficiency and Sean Tucker had abysmal efficiency. It's usually the other way around, but good for Rashod White. He is helping himself secure this workhorse role even more. I thought that Sean Tucker was going to make more of a play here, but White really stepped up in this game. You got to hand it to him here. Devin Tompkins also had a carry for 11 as well. Mike Evans, monster game. I think, I thought he was a sell high after last week, and I still think he's a sell high because the Vikings do not have a good secondary. The Bears do not have a good secondary, and Mike Evans totally took advantage of that. Baker Mayfield usually doesn't have this sort of connection with his wide receiver one. You look at Odell on the Browns. You look at DJ Moore last year on the Panthers. So this could just be a product of them having 2 super easy secondary matchups. So if you can get an elite receiver for Mike Evans right now, absolutely pull the trigger because even with this monster production, he still had as many targets as Chris Godwin, only 2 more than Cade Otton. I just don't think this is going to be sustainable as the Bucs play better opponents. Chris Godwin had 5 catches for 58 yards. Cade Otton had 6 catches for 41. Rashod White had 5 catches for 30. Just adding to an awesome day for White. It's good to see Cade Otton coming through with production too. I think he's a sneaky wide receiver, like kind of that Dalton Schultz, very low-end tight end 1 there. Trey Palmer, the rookie from Nebraska, had a catch for 20. Raheem Jarrett had a catch for 7. And David Wells, 2 catches for negative 10 yards. Just really weird stuff there. But so sell high on Mike Evans for sure. Rashod White might be a sell high also because the Bears defense isn't good, but I'm not ready to say that with any sort of confidence because Rashod White did play a lot better than the other backs in this game. And Baker Mayfield, really solid stuff. He's doing a good job of managing this game, at least through these first 2 weeks. Next game is the Giants and the Cardinals. The Giants pulled this one out, came back in a huge way. They were down big, and they won 31-28. Daniel Jones, really rough start. It looked really bad at the beginning, but he came through at the end. 26 of 37, 321 yards, 2 touchdowns, a pick, 9 carries and 59 yards on the ground with a rushing touchdown. Just phenomenal stuff from Daniel Jones today. Saquon Barkley had 17 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown. Good stuff from him as well. And Matt Breida had the 1 carry for 5. So keep plugging in Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones looks like a solid starting option. It looked really bad there for the first few quarters, but he pulled it out at the end there. Jalen Hyatt led the way for all receivers. He had 2 catches for 89 yards on 2 targets. Just super explosive plays from him. I would not be surprised if he had more of a role as we go forward. Darren Waller looked like the number 1 receiver. 6 catches, 76 yards, led the team in targets. Really good stuff from him. Keep plugging him into your lineups. Darius Slayton had 3 catches for 62. Isaiah Hodgins had 4 catches for 40 and a touchdown. Saquon Barkley had 6 catches for 29 and a touchdown. Paris Campbell had 4 for 21. And Sterling Shepard chipped in a catch for 4. So look out for Jalen Hyatt to have more of a role in this offense. I think he's a sneaky waiver ad. Keep plugging in Darren Waller. Keep plugging in Saquon Barkley. And even though it looked rough there for the first 6 quarters of Daniel Jones' season, he's going to be a solid starting option, like a low-end QB1 because of the damage that he does on the ground. That 59 yards and a touchdown is really going to help out your fantasy team a lot. For the Cardinals, Josh Dobbs, making me look stupid for ranking him 32nd. He looks comfortable in this system, which is why they traded for him in the first place, because he knows this system. the offensive coordinator is from the Browns, where Josh Dobbs played with him. So I thought it was, they don't have the most talent on this roster, but with Josh Dobbs' familiarity in this system, there could be something here. Not like, superstar potential, but like he could be a bye week fill-in on weeks that he has a decent matchup. I'm not ready to say that just yet, but keep an eye out on him because he also chipped in 3 carries for 41 yards and a touchdown on the ground. So really solid stuff from him. James Conner looked great. 23 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown. Keep plugging him into your lineups. He is really good. Keontae Ingram had 2 carries for 6 yards, and Amari DiMercado, who I think is like a super-duper deep sleeper. Dynasty leagues, if you have a spot in your taxi squad for him, for rookies, I think he's a decent taxi squad player, but only 1 carry for -2 yards here. Michael Wilson, the rookie from Stanford, led the way with Zach Ertz for receiving, but really evenly dispersed stuff here. Michael Wilson had 3 catches for 56 yards. Zach Ertz had 6 catches for 56. I think he's a really solid tight end option. He's that tier above Dalton Schultz, in my opinion, because at least you can count on Zach Ertz getting consistent targets. He had 10 targets last game, 8 targets here. Really good stuff from him. Really high floor as opposed to the other tight ends. Hollywood Brown had 6 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown. Great day from him. 10 targets. He's absolutely an option for fantasy lineups moving forward. Trey McBride just had the 2 catches for 32. Rondale Moore, only the 1 catch for 14. Didn't really build off of what he did last week when he was the number 1 guy. Zach Pascal had 1 catch for 9 yards, and Amari DiMercado had 2 catches for 7. So Michael Wilson, keep an eye out on him developing more of a consistent role in this offense. That might develop as the season goes on, but they already have Hollywood Brown, who's a really, really good receiver. They have Zach Ertz, who's going to command targets, so I wouldn't expect too much from Michael Wilson. James Conner, keep plugging him in. And Josh Dobbs, maybe a bye week fill-in when he has a good matchup. So keep an eye out on him. Next game is the 49ers and the Rams. The 49ers pulled this one out 30-23. Brock Purdy was 17-25 for 206 yards. Just solid, even day from him. He's just really a game manager out there. So this is kind of the, you'd want a little bit more touchdowns with these yards after the catch guys, but this is about the baseline for him. Just a really good high floor option at quarterback. Christian McCaffrey doing Christian McCaffrey things. 20 carries, 116 yards and a touchdown. He is going to be the RB1 in all of fantasy this year. Deebo Samuel had 5 carries for 38 yards and a touchdown. He had a really good day today. And Brock Purdy also had a rushing touchdown on 5 yards and 3 carries. Deebo Samuel led the way for all receivers. He had 6 catches for 63 yards. Juwan Jennings, the former high school quarterback, had 2 catches for 51. And Brandon Ayuk, only the 3 catches for 43. I got so much hate for saying that he was a sell high last week, and he's not a sell high anymore because he didn't perform today, but he's going to have an up and down year. Deebo Samuel is the number 1 guy here. Christian McCaffrey is a stud. They're going to go to Brandon Ayuk, but just don't expect like super consistent output from him. This is going to be the baseline. 43 yards on 3 catches is not the worst thing in the world, but it's not what you want out of a star player. That's why I was saying, if you could get T. Higgins for Brandon Ayuk, I would do it for sure. But I don't think that's going to be a possibility after this game. George Kittle had 3 catches for 30 yards, and Christian McCaffrey added 3 for 19 as well. So Deebo Samuel proving his value still. Christian McCaffrey, RB1 in all of fantasy, and Brock Purdy, a super good high floor option if you need a quarterback. For the Rams, Matthew Stafford had a busy day, 34 of 55, 307 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. I don't think he's a fantasy starter this year. Kyron Williams had a massive day, 14 carries, 52 yards, and a touchdown. Cam Akers was a healthy scratch. Kyron Williams is the RB1 in this backfield for sure. No one else even got a carry here. These are all receivers behind him and Matthew Stafford. So if you got Kyron Williams in your waiver wire, congratulations. If you drafted him at the very end of your draft like we have been doing all preseason, congratulations, because this is looking like a real steal right now. Stafford chipped in 4 carries for 17 yards on the ground. Ben Skoranek had a carry for 11. Tutu Atwell had a carry for 5. And Puka Nacua had 2 carries for 4. Speaking of Puka, he had a monster day. 20 targets, 15 receptions and 147 yards. He is slotting right into where Cooper Kupp left off. And it is super surprising that a fifth-round rookie would do that, but he is absolutely doing it. He is a must-start as long as Cooper Kupp is out, and he may have a role when Kupp comes back because of how much Stafford is trusting him. I just wouldn't bank on that because I think Kupp is going to just pick up where Puka left off, and Puka can be more of a complementary receiver. But as long as Kupp is out, must start Puka Nacua. He looks phenomenal. Tutu Atwell also looks great. 7 catches for 77 yards on 9 targets. He's for sure going to go down when Kupp comes back. So I wouldn't expect much out of him then. But while he's out, you could absolutely do much worse at receiver. Kyron Williams chipped in 6 catches for 48 yards and a touchdown, just adding to a monster day, 10 targets for him. Tyler Higbee just had the 3 catches for 12 yards on 7 targets. He's trending towards a drop. I kind of classify him in that Dalton Schultz area of tight ends, just kind of in the middle there. This was a tough matchup against the 49ers too, but he didn't do too well last week when he had a really good matchup against the Seahawks. So if you drop Tyler Higbee, I would understand. Ben Skoranek had the 1 catch for 10. Van Jefferson just had 1 catch for 9. He really fell off. And Ronnie Rivers, the backup running back, no carries for him, but he had a catch for 4. So congratulations if you added Kyron Williams. Congratulations if you added Puka Nacua. Those guys are looking like massive steals right now. Next game is the Cowboys and the Jets. The Cowboys just destroyed them 30-10. Zach Wilson, abysmal day today. 12 of 27, 170 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions. He also led the way for all rushers with 5 carries and 36 yards. I wonder if they are going to trade for another quarterback or sign Carson Wentz or something because, you know, the Cowboys have a really good defense. They proved that last week when they shut out the Giants 40-0. They proved it again this week with the terrible performance that the Jets offense had. The Jets got to do something different. Zach Wilson is not going to cut it. He does not look good out there. Atrocious performance today from him and from the Jets offense as a whole. I think they need to trade for somebody as soon as possible. Maybe Gardner Minshew, maybe Jacoby Brissett, but they got to figure something out. If, you know, Aaron Rodgers is doing this new Achilles recovery process where he could potentially be back for the playoffs, I'll believe that when I see it because I haven't heard of an Achilles injury healing that quickly. But since this is new, that is a possibility. And if they expect that to have any sort of chance of happening, they need a new quarterback because Zach Wilson is not getting it done. Breece Hall only had 4 carries for 9 yards. Michael Carter had 2 carries for 8. Dalvin Cook had 4 carries for 7. And Ashton Davis had the 1 carry for 4. Just brutal stuff from the Jets rush today. They couldn't get anything going. Garrett Wilson actually had a decent day. 2 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown. He is supremely talented, a top 10 receiver talent in the entire league. He is going to get production regardless. He's going to have a cap on it because of his quarterback situation, but say they get Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett had a great connection with Amari Cooper last year. Gardner Minshew did well with Michael Pittman today. Garrett Wilson is going to have value the rest of the way forward. If you have him on your team, I would just hold him because he is so supremely talented. He's gonna have stats every game. There's gonna be some duds because of his quarterback situation again, but just hang on to him, be patient with him. I'm hoping that a new quarterback is on the way. Tyler Conklin had 5 catches for 50 yards. Alan Lazard had 2 catches for 23. Mecole Hardman had a catch for 6. Dalvin Cook had a catch for 5. And Michael Carter had a catch for 3. Tyler Conklin has an interesting connection with Zach Wilson. So that is something to monitor if you're looking for a tight end option. But I think the biggest takeaway here is what I've been saying over and over again. The Jets desperately need a new quarterback. For the Cowboys, Dak Prescott had a great day. 31 of 38, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. The Cowboys are just rolling. They look phenomenal. Tony Pollard, not the best average, but the Jets have a really stellar run defense. 25 carries on 72 yards for him. Rico Dowdle had 7 carries for 26. Deuce Vaughn had 3 carries for 16. Dak Prescott had 6 for 14. Kevontae Turpin had 2 for 6. And Peyton Hendershot had a carry for no yards. CeeDee Lamb, 11 catches, 143 yards, 13 targets. Elite stuff from him. He is an elite receiver. Keep plugging him into your lineups. Tony Pollard, 7 catches, 37 yards, making up for that lack of efficiency on the ground with 7 catches. Good stuff from him. Jalen Tolbert had 3 catches for 18 yards. Rico Dowdle had 1 catch for 17. Deuce Vaughn had 3 catches for 16. Jake Ferguson, just the 3 catches for 11, but he did have the touchdown. Kevontae Turpin had a catch for 9. Michael Gallup had a catch for 3, and Luke Schoonmaker chipped in 1 catch, 1 yard, and 1 touchdown. Keep an eye on Jake Ferguson. He's kind of in that Dalton Schultz realm of like middling tight ends, in my opinion, because the touchdown did all the heavy lifting as far as his fantasy output today. Tony Pollard, keep plugging him in. It's super interesting that CeeDee Lamb led all receivers with 143 yards, and the next closest receiver was Jalen Tolbert with just 18. So what is that? That is, 125 yards? Yeah, 125 yards. CeeDee Lamb beat the next closest receiver, so, out-targeted the next closest receiver by 9 targets. So it is CeeDee Lamb and everyone else, at least while Brandon Cooks is out. It might look different when Brandon Cooks is back in, but if Cooks misses more time, this offense is going to be CeeDee Lamb and everyone else through the air. And Dak Prescott, good performance against a good defense. I think he is a really solid starting option for fantasy. Next game is the Commanders and the Broncos. The Commanders pulled this one out 35-33. Sam Howell had a solid day, 27-39, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. Brian Robinson had a monster day, and this is what we were talking about the whole preseason, how it didn't make sense that Antonio Gibson was going ahead of him in fantasy drafts. They had every reason to play Antonio Gibson more last year, and they still chose to give Brian Robinson the ball over and over and over again, and they are just picking up where they left off. Brian Robinson has been a steal in fantasy drafts, 2 touchdowns on the ground today. Also had 2 catches for 42 yards. Just really awesome stuff for Brian Robinson. Keep putting him into your lineups. Curtis Samuel had a carry for 13 yards. Sam Howell also had 13 yards on 2 carries. And Antonio Gibson just had the 2 carries for 9. Terry McLaurin had a solid day. 5 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. John Bates had 3 catches for 46 yards. Antonio Gibson had 3 catches for 44. Brian Robinson had 2 catches for 42. De'Ami Brown had 3 for 25. Logan Thomas, he got hurt in this game, but he had 2 catches for 22 and a touchdown. Look for Cole Turner to emerge. Cole Turner and John Bates are going to be fighting for targets if Logan Thomas misses more time. Jahan Dotson just had the 3 catches for 22. Curtis Samuel had 3 catches for 19. Cole Turner had the 2 for 21. And Byron Pringle had a catch for 4. So super evenly distributed here. With Patrick Surtain on Terry McLaurin, I thought his production would be capped, but it was super duper evenly spread here. McLaurin looked great. Brian Robinson, keep playing him. I think that is the biggest takeaway here is Brian Robinson bordering on a must-start player regardless of matchup, and Sam Howell looking like a really solid bye-week fill-in. For the Broncos, a really solid fantasy day for Russell Wilson. Not the best completion percentage day, not the best on-field day, but got you what you needed in fantasy. 18-32, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. Also led all rushers with 6 carries and 55 yards. Javonte Williams had 12 carries for 44. Interesting that he's leading all running backs in touches by this amount. 12, and the next closest is 1, 1, 1. So he is for sure the lead dog. It's shocking coming off of such a brutal knee injury last year, but this is what's going on. Javonte is the lead dog. Marvin Mims had 2 carries for 10. Jaleel McLaughlin had the 1 carry for 5 yards and a touchdown. Samaje Perine had 1 carry for 4 yards. He's probably a drop. And Michael Burton also had the carry for 3 yards. Marvin Mims led all receivers with 2 catches and 113 yards and a touchdown. He is the deep threat. His role is going to be inconsistent. I don't think he is a must-add, but really awesome to see that here. Cortland Sutton had 5 catches for 67 yards and 7 targets, led the way in targets. Brandon Johnson had 2 catches for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. Really super efficient day from him. Jerry Jeudy had 3 catches for 25. Disappointing day from him, but it's his first game back from an injury. Samaje Perine had 3 catches for 20 yards. Javonte Williams had 2 catches for 14. And little Jordan Humphrey had a catch for 4. Adam Troutman only targeted once and didn't do anything with it. But hold off on adding Marvin Mims. Javonte Williams is absolutely the lead dog. Russell Wilson, more of a bye week, like a high-end bye week fill-in than like a guy you want to start every week. And, Jerry Jeudy's output was disappointing today, but I think better days are ahead. Last game of the night just finished up. The Dolphins beat the Patriots 24-17. Tua was 21 of 30, 249 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Decent day from him. Raheem Mostert was amazing. 18 carries, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just a stellar day from him. Salvon Ahmed had 3 carries for 13. Devon Achane had a carry for 5. Eric Ezukanma had 3 carries for 5. Tua added 2 on the ground, and Jalen Waddle had a carry for -2. Waddle led the way in receiving, though. He had 4 catches for 86 yards. Tyreek Hill having a disappointing day by Tyreek Hill standards, but still a really good day. 5 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. River Craycraft had 2 catches for 34 yards. I watch a lot of Dan Le Batard show, and they've been calling him River Craft recently. that's pretty awesome. Braxton Berrios had 2 catches for 28 yards. Salvon Ahmed had 3 catches for 28. Durham Smythe had 3 catches for 23. Raheem Mostert had a catch for 6, and Devon Achane had a catch for 4. Patience with Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert, keep plugging them in. This was a bad matchup, too. The Patriots have a solid defense, so the fact that Raheem Mostert was able to put out this sort of production is super promising, and Tua is basically matchup proof at this point. He's a locked-in top 10 QB. Like I said, this was a tough matchup, and he was still able to put out a decent day. Not the best Tua day by any means, but still a solid day. He's one of the best quarterbacks in fantasy. Mac Jones had a solid day, really impressing so far through these first 2 weeks. 31 of 42 for 231 yards, a touchdown, and a pick for him. Ramondre Stevenson led the way for all rushers. He had 15 carries for 50 yards and a touchdown. Good to see him outpace Ezekiel Elliott by this margin. Zeke had 5 carries for 13 yards. Rough day for him, and Mac Jones added 25 on the ground as well. Devontae Parker, his first game this year, he had 6 catches for 57 yards on 8 targets. He looked really good. He's going to be a solid waiver add this week. Hunter Henry had 6 catches for 52 yards and a touchdown. Another really solid waiver add if he's still hanging around. Mike Gesicki had 5 catches for 33 yards. Kendrick Bourne had 4 catches for 29. He did lead the way in targets, though, with 9. Juju had 5 catches for 28 yards. He's been a disappointment so far in the first couple weeks as far as I was expecting him to get a lot more work as that slot guy with New England, but they're doing a really good job of spreading the ball around so far. Demario Douglas had 2 catches for 19 yards. Ramondre Stevenson added 3 catches for 10. And Cole Strange had that pitch that almost got the first down at the end there. But I'm assuming that's what they're calling this 0 catches for 3. It's weird that there's 0 catches, but they still get receiving yards for that. Who knows? But add Devontae Parker if he's on the waiver wire. Add Hunter Henry if he's on the waiver wire. And Mac Jones is a solid bye-week fill-in. He did well against the Eagles, who are a good defense last week. The Dolphins have some players. Keep an eye on him if you need a quarterback. And that'll do it for me, guys. Please like, comment, subscribe, follow at We Are Drafting on Instagram. We just hit 30K today. Awesome stuff. Go check us out over there. We do weekly rankings, add drop lists, buy lows, sell highs. Everything's over there. And check out the next game recap. That'll be coming out on Thursday, and I will see you later.